Joining us for today's panel discussion on smaller cities, bigger impact, how Tier 2 and Tier 3 cities can drive EV growth. This is the second webinar in our ongoing Shoonya webinar series as part of the Shoonya Zero Pollution Mobility campaign hosted by Niti Aayog. While most of the conversations in India around electric vehicles are currently majorly focused on metropolitan areas, India's Tier 2 and Tier 3 cities are quietly emerging as powerful drivers of EV adoption. And today we want to bring that story to the forefront. Tier 2 and 3 cities are uniquely positioned to lead the charge. Their shorter commute reduces range anxiety. The high share of 2, 3, and wheelers make the electrification more accessible. Cost conscious consumers see immediate benefits from fuel and maintenance cost savings coming from electric vehicles. And especially with the current policy landscape, there are incentives available both at the state and central government level. Electrification of logistics, as well as ride hailing, is already underway through e-commerce, food deliveries, and different taxi platforms. So EV transition is no longer just an urban story. It is going to be a local opportunity, and smaller cities are ready to leapfrog. So that is going to be the topic of today's webinar. To kick us off, I would request my colleague Vaibhav Sabharwal to provide us some context on this important topic as well as on the broad overview of Shoonya campaign. And then I'll pass it off to my colleague Chetna Nagpal to moderate a dynamic discussion with our esteemed panelists today, who are going to be Mr. Amegh Gopinath from GIC, Mr. Ayush Lohia from Lohia Auto, Mr. Darryl from Magenta Mobility, Ms. Neha Jain from MG Motors, and Mr. Ravindra Mohan from ChargeZone. Over to you, Vaibhav.
Thank you, Samita, for that brief. I would love to now give a quick brief about what the Shoonya campaign is, and then a short intro to our topic today. So starting with the Shoonya campaign, if we can move to the next slide, Tanishka. Shoonya was launched by Niti Aayog in collaboration with RMI in September 2021 to promote zero pollution delivery and ride hailing in India, as these sectors were seen as low-hanging fruits due to their high daily vehicle usage and centralized fleet operations. So the vision of the campaign included building awareness for demand for zero pollution rides and deliveries, recognizing and promoting industry efforts, and developing a pathway to 100% electrification within these two sectors. And in order to achieve this, Shoonya campaign has three major components. If we can move to the next slide, Tanishka. Namely, corporate engagement, resource toolkits, consumer awareness, each playing a critical role in driving clean mobility adoption and a measurable environmental impact. With respect to the corporate engagement component, Shoonya now has over 225 corporate partners that have joined the campaign, ranging from delivery platform, fleet operators, to charging infrastructure providers, financiers, and even OEMs. And with respect to the resource toolkits, we have now launched 3 resource toolkits. One is a finance toolkit to explore EV lending options. One's an EV calculator that helps compare costs and emissions for potential consumers, and a policy map that breaks down national and state EV policies and subsidies. And lastly, the consumer awareness. Shoonya has now access to over 25 million citizens through its collaboration with MyGov. We've already engaged more than 2.5 lakhs directly through several campaigns. We've hosted over 15 public activities on the MyGov platforms, and our brand films have also crossed over 70 million views. And all in all, these components and our partner network have enabled over 800 million rides and deliveries, which are completely zero emission, and also have led to over 900 crores in fuel savings. Next slide. Thanks, Tanisha. So now let's talk about how the shift to EVs is helping revolutionize the industry, but also contributing to national sustainability goals. We know that India is on the cusp of a transformative shift in its mobility landscape, especially driven by one strong commitment to sustainability, but also self-reliance. And this transition is not merely a technological one, it's also a national imperative, which has far-reaching economic and environmental benefits as well. So the EV market now is poised for exponential growth, with projections showing a surge from, as you can see, over 23 billion USD in 2024 to now over 100 billion USD in the next 7 years by 2032. This demonstrates an immense market confidence and an investment potentials in the EV landscape. And by electrifying mobility and also utilizing domestic energy sources by doing it, by 2047, we have the potential to cut energy demand, significantly reduce emissions, and also reduce our dependency on oil imports. Over to the next slide, Tanishka, please. Thank you. So what does this sort of mean for tier 2 and 3 cities? Tier 2 and 3 cities, as Samita pointed out, are not just adopting EVs, they're also now becoming India's new EV growth hubs. Uh, as as Samita already pointed out, that the shorter commute distances in smaller cities are helping fit the EV use case and EV duty cycles, which is also in turn reducing reliance on public charging, as home and workplace charging are enough for most users, enabling faster adoption. Mid-sized cities are emerging as demand centers with economic growth, urbanization, better roads coming about. Financing options are also improving in these cities, making EVs a more viable option in these regions. And as Samita pointed out, with respect to government subsidies as well, that are coming in place, they also are having a bigger impact in these non-metro cities due to just lower baseline adoption and higher price sensitivity as well. Over to the next slide, please. So now let's take a look at the numbers that are driving this shift with affordable EV models and increasing consumer confidence. We are seeing EV sales grow annually by 51% in 70 tier 2 cities and by 30% in 131 tier 3 cities. With respect to the four-wheelers as well, 66% of four-wheelers EV registrations were from tier 2 and 3 cities this year, which is a significant increase from 49% in fiscal year 2023. And with two-wheelers being the dominant mode of transport in smaller cities as well, their electrification in tier 2 cities, in several tier 2 cities, I would say, are outpacing most of the tier 1 cities now as well. And with the rise of e-commerce in tier 2 and 3 cities, that's also fueling demand for last mile delivery. And with lower maintenance and fuel savings, three-wheelers are also gaining a lot of traction. And lastly, to support this rising EV adoption in these cities, charging network is also witnessing a significant growth in these cities. With that, I would now love to welcome and introduce our esteemed panel, starting alphabetically. Mr. Amegh Gopinath, India Component Lead of Freight Electrification at GIZ. Amegh leads electric mobility projects at GIZ India, where he supports national and state agencies, including MHI, Niti Aayog, and the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, on strategies to decarbonize transport and improve urban air quality. Welcome, Amegh. Secondly, Mr. Ayush Lohia, CEO of Zuperia Auto. Mr. Ayush Lohia is driving electric mobility adoption with a strong focus on tier 2 and 3 cities. Zuperia Auto is now one of India's largest electric vehicle manufacturers, offering a wide range of 15 plus e-rickshaws and electric autos through 100 plus dealers across 40 plus cities. And through Zuperia, he's making EVs more accessible and tailored to the needs of smaller urban centers, backed by over his 16 years of experience in the industry. Welcome, Mr. Lohia. I now welcome Mr. Darryl, co-founder and CPO of Magenta Mobility. Since co-founding Magenta Mobility in 2017, Darryl has played a key role in scaling last mile delivery solutions and charging infrastructure. With over 12 years of experience across Connected Herdelia, Abyss Crane Systems, and Godrej and Voice, he blends business acumen with a passion for technology, shaping India's EV growth story. Welcome to the panel, Mr. Darryl. I'd like to now introduce Ms. Neha Jain, Head of EV and Innovation Ecosystem at MG Motor India. Neha currently leads EV strategy and innovation at MG Motors. She's building a comprehensive ecosystem to accelerate e-mobility adoption. And with 15 plus years of experience across EV charging, battery tech, and emerging technologies, she brings both technical depth and also a strategic vision to the panel. Welcome, Neha. I would like to now introduce Mr. Ravindra Mohan, Director, Strategy and Business of ChargeZone. Shaping ChargeZone's strategy and growth, Mr. Ravindra Mohan is making EV charging infrastructure more accessible to Indians across the country. He boasts over 40 years of experience leading high-impact projects across power, engineering, and corporate sectors. Welcome, Mr. Ravindra. And lastly, my colleague, Ms. Chetna Nagpal, who will be moderating the panel today. Chetna serves as a senior associate at RMI, where she leads several e-mobility initiatives, including the Shoonya campaign. She works closely with Niti Aayog and several state governments to advance electric mobility and clean transport solutions across India. Welcome all, and thank you for joining us today. I will now pass it to Chetna to lead the panel.
Thanks, Vaibhav. Good afternoon, everyone. I would say that Samita and Vaibhav have made my job easier by setting the context that well. But just to add, I think I strongly believe that India's EV revolution is no longer just a metro city story. Today, tier 2 and tier 3 cities are emerging as powerful drivers in this shift. And whether it's the demand for affordable mobility, the rapid expansion of e-commerce, or even state EV policies for that matter, smaller cities are shaping the future of EV adoption in ways we could not have imagined a few years ago. However, with this growth, there are unique challenges that we plan to discuss over this panel today. And what are the emerging solutions that we are seeing over the tier 2 and tier 3 cities? Now, to dive deeper into the topic, I would say we have an excellent panel which comprises of OEMs, fleet operators, infrastructure providers, and policy experts on the topic. So let's get started. To start us off, I would like each one of you to share your thoughts on this question. Over the past year, what is one major shift that you've observed in EV transition in tier 2 and tier 3 cities? Do you think it's a policy push, a market driven trend, a technological breakthrough, or a broader shift in consumer behavior that you're seeing? What has been the most defining change in your experience? I think to ease the entire panel discussion, I would say we just stick to the order that was there on the slide. So I'll start with Amegh, pass it to Ayush ji, to Darryl, to Neha, and then Ravindra ji. I hope that works for everyone. So Amegh, over to you.
Thanks, Chetna. First of all, thank you for the opportunity, and congratulations to RMI and Niti Aayog, for the Shoonya campaign, and also to organize this webinar. I think it's very timely, and probably we have been hearing from different consultation with MHI and Niti Aayog in the past few months. We have seen how national policies and state level EV policies have been driving the larger e-mobility and electric vehicle penetration, not just in the metropolitan cities, but then across tier 2 and tier 3 cities. And something very promising that I've seen in the last 5 years, especially the e-bus adoption, various initiatives like the Grand Challenge National e-bus program, now the PM e-bus Seva. Initially, the focus was largely, in the 4 million plus cities in terms of population, largely focusing on Delhi, Mumbai, Bangalore, Hyderabad, all these 9 cities. But then in the last, I think, a year or two, with the coming of PM e-bus Seva, the shift has completely moved to the cities which are under 4 million population, especially I think around 169 cities. And now under PM e-bus Seva, we have around 10,000 electric buses to be procured. And the positive news is we already have a successful tender. Now JBM is going to sort of deploy around 1,000 buses in Gujarat, Maharashtra, and few other states as well. And we do see, there's a demand for 50,000 electric buses by 2030, and most of it, which would be, coming in tier 2 and tier 3 cities. Although all this while, the larger penetration has been in the, metropolitan cities. The good thing is even the OEMs have been expanding their manufacturing capacities, not just focusing on the demand in the metropolitan cities, but then across these tier 2, tier 3 cities. And the good part of these national policies, especially PM e-Drive, which is the flagship policy, under Ministry of Heavy Industries, the focus has also, gone beyond 2-wheelers, 3-wheelers. Now we're also focusing on electric trucks and electric ambulances, which is in a hybrid, powertrain. But then the idea here is the demand aggregation, which has been a very successful approach, which has been followed by the national nodal agencies like MHI and MOHUA for e-bus demand aggregation. And now they're going to follow the same for the charging infrastructure as well. As part of the PM e-Drive, we have seen a demand being generated for 77,000 public charging station across states and cities, and mostly which would be targeting the tier 2, tier 3 cities. So I've seen that shift both from the policy end and also the the penetration, which is also due to the the emergence of importance of improving the air quality and shifting to a cleaner fuel technology. and reducing your emissions, tailpipe emissions. So there have been a lot of capacity building sensitization program like Shoonya, Switch Delhi, and a lot of states like Punjab are also moving towards how they can sensitize the users and also enhance the capacities of the state and city level nodal agencies who are responsible to sort of push and faster adopt EV. So I think it's a multi-stakeholder led approach at the national, at the state and city level, which has helped to sort of push the electrification and go beyond the metropolitan cities, and especially the private sector as well, the OEMs, operators, and CPOs, charge point operators as well. And I see a good shift on the financing side as well, NBFCs and private banking and bilateral and multilateral agencies as well coming forward, supporting the overall transition. And now we have the payment security mechanism also announced by Ministry of Heavy Industries, where they see how the private sector, especially the OEMs and operators, don't get affected by these payments which needs to come from state transport undertakings and city bus agencies. So in a nutshell, what I would say, it's a multiple stakeholder state and national ministry, which has been playing a very critical role in pushing the overall PM, the EV drive in India. And also just to quickly highlight some of the gaps, what we have seen, although we have seen that, the charging infrastructure has been lagging behind, but then states like UP, Karnataka, Delhi, and Telangana have been, very aggressive when it comes to expanding charging infrastructure, and the PM e-drive at this point, critically focuses on charging infrastructure, how we can scale up. And there was always this question, whether the EV comes first or the charging infrastructure. But then we know clearly, like it's essential that we lay down the charging infrastructure network as well, so that there's a balanced adoption in terms of EV and charging infrastructure. Apart from that, I think one of the critical area is where we focus more on implementing the state EV policies. Apart from the adoption, we also need to see how we can increase the local manufacturing capacity, and also see how we can strengthen the existing capacities of the government institution. And also on the the data part, open data, with electrification, there's a lot of autonomous which would generate a lot of data, and we need to see going forward how we utilize this data to see how we customize our policies and also our approach towards electrification across state and city level. Chetna, I'll conclude with that. So these were my initial thoughts to begin with. Over to you, Chetna.
No, thank you so much for setting the context that well, all the developments that are happening, especially on the policy front and behavior side with the awareness campaigns. And thank you for touching upon the financing and charging infrastructure. I think I would then, I see that Ayush is facing some technical issues. So maybe let's start with Darryl. And my next question is to you and Neha both. In terms of the changes that we are seeing in the tier 2 and tier 3 cities, especially on the financing end. So over to you, Darryl, and then we can take things forward.
Yeah, Chetna, thank you for having me on this panel. Congratulations to RMI for this Shoonya event. So what's the one major shift over the last 1 year or 2 years that I have personally, or that has caught my attention, is the EV penetration percentages, right? If you look at the percentages, or on a macro level, the last calendar year, that's 2024, we sold close to 20 lakhs EVs that comprised of all the form factors: two-wheelers, three-wheelers, passenger, cargo, four-wheelers, all of it, right? Most of it came from this 20 lakhs. Most of it came from the two-wheelers. But the EV penetration was barely a single digit, 3 to 4%, maximum 6% in few months over the last 1 year. What caught my attention was the cargo and the goods segment, the L5 category, that took away almost 1/4 of the diesel, petrol, CNG variants, right? So we sold close to 25% of the L5 and the goods category of electric vehicles. Most of these sales happen in tier 2 and tier 3 cities, right? Not in metros and tier 1 cities. So this just goes on to say that, how good the EV adoption has been over the last 1 year or 2 years or so. And it also goes on to highlight that once we've done the 25% of EV penetration, it wouldn't take much for us to reach 50 and 75% over the years. And that's one major shift that I have noticed, Chetna.
No, amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that. Great to see that L5 constituted majority of the diesel and petrol vehicles, uh, replacing diesel and petrol vehicles. I think next, Neha, I would open the floor for you. I think what's the one major change, and are there any specific segments for you that are being sold the most?
Sure. Thank you, Chetna. First of all, thank you so much for having me on this, really diverse and insightful panel. And I think it's a real opportune, moment to have this discussion, because as we see the adoption of EV growing in the country, we are also seeing a very positive, I would say, adoption coming from the tier 2, tier 3 cities. If I talk about JSW, MG as a OEM, and we look at how trends we are also seeing. So in the last 6 to 8 months, we see that in fact the EV share for our own segment has increased very positively. Like around 78% of our sales are coming from electric vehicles. Then what also positively shifting is the demand which is coming from tier 2, tier 3 cities. Right now 50% of this demand is coming from tier 2, tier 3, and if I further break down, 20 to 25% is coming from tier 3 and tier 4 cities. So I would say that is a very positive movement that we are seeing, and this is also contributed by the fact of increasing awareness on EVs. And when we compare the demand of tier 1 versus tier 2 and tier 3 cities, it is also very evident that while in tier 1 and tier 2, tier 1 cities mainly, or metropolitans, the demand was more coming from early adopters, and the awareness is also a bit higher. But now the awareness is also increasing in the tier 2, tier 3 cities, and especially on the parameters which people consider. So when it comes to EV, the parameters are quite practical, like what is the range of the vehicle, what is the cost of ownership, what is the maintenance cost, how long is it going to run, etc. So it is very, I would say, majorly driven by the usage and very practical viability of EV as a product. Also, I think one of the major contributing factor in increasing this adoption is the increased visibility and availability of the charging infrastructure. Even though I'll still say it is nascent, but compared to the tier 1 cities, but it is, as we all know, that charging infrastructure remains a significant barrier. And when we go to tier 2 and tier 3 cities, it becomes even more prominent because the charging options are limited. While still 90% and more charging happens at home, but when it comes to long distance travel and intercity travel, then the public charging infrastructure plays a major role. Also, in the last 1 year, if we see, there has been a noticeable push by the government and also by the private players to establish, the network and increase the, I would say, density of the charging points, in the cities, which has helped not only in the expansion only at the highway level, but also in within the city, if required. And this is also helping to build, I would say, new consumption patterns. Like we see that most of the travel locations, or hotels, or staycations, or the public locations are also accepting charging infrastructure to ease the usage for the customers, which is, these are all the locations where you would prefer to charge, if not at home. So I think these are the two main trends which are helping to build the adoption. Obviously, this is also pushed by a good EV awareness, and I would say, push by the government and the state policies, which are also incentivizing the consumers to go more and more to buy electric vehicles.
Thanks, Neha. Very impressive, the numbers that you've shared, and thank you for sharing. I think, and thanks for touching upon charging infrastructure, because we have one of the most important charging infrastructure players in India right now on the panel. So I'm going to pass it to Ravindra ji. I think what's the one big change, but it'll be great if you can touch upon from charging infrastructure point of view, have infrastructure development such as the battery network system? Have they kept pace with the rising demand in tier 2 and tier 3 cities? Sir, I think you are on mute.
Thanks, Chetna
Yes, sir.
and others for inviting us for this. It is, as every panelist has told, this is the right movement to go out and tell people what is happening. Because what we see is the more the EV adoption, the more things will follow. And generally, what has happened so far, we have been creating supply for demand to follow as far as charging as a CPU charge is concerned. We realized this much earlier. From 2022, we have been in tier 2 cities. ChargeZone has been putting up in tier 2 cities. And overall, as we stand today, we have more than 200 charging points in around 35 cities across India, which are tier 2, not metros. Having said that, what is it that drove us there? It was simply a leap of faith that this will be there. And since we are principally into four-wheeler, we see the utilization rising in these from 1% to 7%, somewhere, sometimes some months 10%. And all depends on the selection of the sites, etc. We have collaborated with the restaurants, malls, that means on revenue sharing basis, and with OEMs and EV OEMs, plus partners like Gentry and all who want to come into the space, oil companies. And it has been a good experience so far. That means these have been able to pay for themselves. We don't have to burn equity in running these things. So thanks to the MG and all who are selling four-wheelers, so we are able to, Tata and MGs and all, so we are able to make our ends meet. And I told these are spread across 12 states and 35 cities. We have also dabbled in public-private partnership, but not with so much success. Their utilization has been 0% to 3%. This is generally Surat Municipal Corporation, very early in 22-23. And because, again, as I told, criticality is choosing the right location for this. Where, because any charging, whether it is three-wheeler or four-wheeler or two-wheeler, has to compete with home charging in tier 2 cities. As it was mentioned, the reason why it is being sold more is you're not dependent on public charging stations. But those who have it, once in a while, travel outside the city. So choosing the right transit point or right places, restaurants, etc., where people go and spend some time, and busy schedule, sometimes they may like to charge. So this has been the key to it. And challenges have been, as Neha just mentioned, maybe more four-wheeler penetration, more CPOs will join in. We have been there, so we know it is there. Site selection, transit play model, and transit point selection, where exactly you transit of a city, those are the things which are key to the success of any public charging station. What is the future that holds for it? Another challenge has been the quality of power in tier 2 cities, which is not metro, you take it for granted. Tier 2 is a challenge, so always solar and grid is going to be the solution in the future. We have already done it. We have, as we speak, we are putting up 100 kilowatt hour to 1.2 megawatt of battery backups as an illustration and to satisfy ourselves and see how it works. Some of them are tested in factory, already at site, being tested. So that is going to be one key thing in tier 2, tier 3 cities. Probably our ability to get the solar integration will be a challenge, but that is the only way. Otherwise, power could be one. When you need it, it is not available, then it is like, you have a car without a fuel. It doesn't work. And what we suggest to MHI and all in recent discussions is that probably in tier 2 cities, it may not be a pure DC charging model, which we are doing it, but probably we can have some AC slow chargers and battery swapping along with it. Because as it was mentioned, truck is the one which is going to be the next intercity thing. And you take from metro and go to tier 2, you don't have a charging point, you cannot have large batteries. So a hybrid charging model, charging station is the one which probably is likely to come up in the tier 2 cities more, because then emergency or two-wheelers can charge, battery swapping, e-rickshaws can use it. And you have a 150 kilowatt of power where these trucks can charge. So this is my take on the whole thing. And future looks bright.
No, thank you so much, sir, and thank you for sharing the progress on infrastructure in tier 2 and tier 3 cities and stressing on the need for identifying locations and what's working well, what's not working well when it comes to charging models, be it PPP or others. I think Mr. Lohia has joined us. So, sir, I'll pass it to you. The question that I would want you to share your insights on is what's over the past 1 year, what is the one major shift that you've observed in EV adoption in tier 2 and tier 3 cities? So, over to you.
Thank you, Chetna. I'm really sorry for the goof up because of the connection. Frankly speaking, there have been multiple factors which has actually resulted in the growth in electric vehicles. But one major factor which I will see is actually defining this growth is cost. The customer in India is very cost sensitive, and the cost of electric vehicle has come down or has been at par with that of IC vehicle. That is the major reason why the things are changing. The consumer behavior is changing. Awareness is being created because of the cost. A lot of big players has also jumped in just because the cost has been has reduced on the component part, the battery part, which is more than 50% of the vehicle cost. So overall, if I see the only one factor which has affected this complete change or shift from gasoline vehicle to electric vehicle has been the cost of the vehicle, whether it's two-wheeler, whether it's cars or three-wheelers. And definitely this is all comes up with the awareness. The range anxiety has been reduced drastically because of the charging infrastructure, the awareness. Government is very proactive. You have instead of only non-renewable sources of electricity, you have renewable source of electricity also available. So all those factors are adding up and giving a lot of benefit when it comes to electric vehicle. Yes, we foresee that further this benefit will be passed on to the customers and the progress will continue to have. We will have a very good growth and double-digit growth over a period of next 2 to 3 years. But next 2 to 3 years will play a very important role because still two-wheeler segment is 6 to 7% of the total numbers sold in electric vehicle segment. Three-wheeler is having some substantial numbers because of the support from e-rickshaw L3 category vehicles. And L5 category vehicles are catching up the pace and giving competition to IC vehicles. New tractions has been progress has been created in electric L5 category segment and definitely L2 category segment. So I think in coming time, in next 2 to 3 years, we will definitely find some good potential for electric two-wheeler space and three-wheeler space.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Lohia, for sharing insights around the cost reduction and how awareness is playing a bigger role, and how we are seeing good progress when it comes to L5 and L2 category vehicles, something Darryl also pointed out. I think I'm going to transition to the next round. Thanks for sharing your insights and especially around the key developments that you're seeing. Coming from a personal experience, I see that many of these cities, including Panipat, where I come from, they're already seeing a strong uptake of electric two-wheelers, three-wheelers, and even buses for that matter. And something that we had not seen back then, but now we're seeing electric buses being introduced. But there continues to be challenges in the minds of the people, mostly to do with the consumer behavior, range anxiety, someone pointed out, and lack of awareness in general. Through this second round, I want to dive deeper into what's working, what's missing, and how we can accelerate EV adoption in smaller cities. But before I start posing questions, I'm going to request you all to please limit your responses to 1 minute so that we can ensure that we hear from everyone. So I'll start with Amegh. In terms of the policy and regulatory factors, which you already touched upon, are there any gaps that you see that need to be addressed to ensure policies match the ground reality, especially in the tier 2 and tier 3 cities?
Yeah, thanks, Chetna. What I see with the transition, EV transition, couple of things which comes to my mind, especially the gender part, how we make the transition more disabled friendly. The overall inclusivity is something that we need to focus as well. When we talk about unfortunately, transport as a sector has been very male dominant. Like when we talk about any sector which is related to transport, let it be urban mobility or freight or logistics, anything, it's largely male dominated. And then when it comes to mobility, when we talk about mobility, I think looking from the larger lens of how we create our infrastructure more accessible for persons with disability, that's another part where we need to also look into, especially the charging infrastructure that we have. We need to see how these charging infrastructure are more accessible for different genders and people with disability. And the overall circularity, when we talk about EV, we clearly know there's a future where we would have a lot of battery and cell related waste and EV components coming in. So the overall circularity is another thing that we need to closely watch and see how we work towards it. And all this while we have been completely depending on critical minerals, which are part of these cells and battery through mining. But then we also need to see how we manage the supply chain of the critical minerals, how we have a sustainable EV transition or the just transition. And one other aspect which is also critical is the skilling and reskilling of the agencies, the national, state, and urban local bodies who are responsible for implementing these policies. If I can take an example, is the operating model of buses in India as part of PME drive. There's a clear mandate that electric buses that would be operating in the cities or in the smaller cities, it would be under GCC, the gross cost contract model, and especially when it comes to the demand generation, technical specification, there's a lot of responsibility with the the nodal agencies who's responsible for bus operation, preparing the proposals. What is the demand, how many buses does the city require, or for that matter for both intercity and intracity operations, what are the demand for the charging infrastructure? Although we know that 80% of our charging is largely home based or destination based, and there's a mix of public charging station and semi-public charging station. So we need to see how these nodal agencies, their capacities are enhanced so that they understand the right demand and supply required for their cities. So and also with the transition, we know the technology itself is new. We also need to see how we develop the after sales service sector as well. So that's another area that we need to see. Probably with the transition in the next 3 or 4 years, we will see a need for services being provided by not just the OEMs, but then the informal sector as well. Some of the local manufacturers in the IC sector, it'll be Mahindra, Tata, or Maruti, they have succeeded basically because of their strong after sales services, and that's something which is very essential going forward for EVs as well. And that being said, I think we have seen the electric trucks is the next focus, and we also need to see how we focus towards that, because the 30 to 40% of the GHG emission comes from the truck sector. And essentially the PME drive also is going to focus a little more on the electrification part of trucks, and EFAS is also there. So these are like couple of areas that I would like to highlight through the session, critical areas that we really need to focus in the next couple of years, maybe like a target for 2030. See how we sort of progress in these areas which are going to be very critical.
Sounds good. No, thank you so much. Thanks for focusing on the inclusivity and circularity part of it. Something new that you brought to the panel as well. My next question is for Mr. Lohia. especially on the 2 and 3 wheelers that are already leaving the adoption? What key factors are driving the demand, and what challenges remain in scaling adoption? Again, a gentle reminder for everyone to kindly limit to 1 minute in the interest of time.
So, if we really want to increase the adoption for two-wheelers and three-wheelers, specifically three-wheelers, I think I have been talking at multiple platforms and stages, like let us have a long-term policy from the government. I have been into this electric vehicle manufacturing since 2008. And we have seen that every time we get policy only for a year or 2 years. We don't have any long-term policy when it comes to the complete ecosystem for the electric vehicle, whether you talk about charging infrastructure, whether you talk about battery manufacturing, key component manufacturing. It's always like after every 1 or 2 years, you have a change in policy, the thought process changes, the process of which we have to go through again and again on the same policy making, whether you talk about FAME policy, whether you talk about PME drive policy, it has been always short term. While when we talk about industry, if you talk about automotive industry, is always a long visionary business manufacturing entity where you need to have a long-term horizon of 3 to 5 years, which has always been missing. And here we are trying to integrate multiple industries, whether you talk about power, for electricity generation, charging infrastructure, which again connects 4 to 5 industries altogether, vehicle manufacturing, where the backhand is not there, including the minerals, the lithium-ion battery manufacturing, key components like motor and controllers, and all those things. So all these things needs a lot of integration between multiple industries, which can only come into effects once you have a long-term policy horizon. I remember just 5 years back, when first FAME policy came into system, we were also referring the same thing, that why only 2 years, 3 years? Why can't we have a roadmap? Now, again, from Delhi, we have seen a very positive move where it is mandating that post August 2025, we will not be having any gasoline vehicles sold, and post 2026 August September there will not be any gasoline two-wheelers sold in Delhi state. If these kind of policies are coming into the system, everyone in the ecosystem should be prepared to handle those kind of shift from gasoline to electric. I really appreciate that these efforts is going to benefit in long term to the industry, but a lot of groundwork need to be done if we want to implement these kind of things. Electric vehicle can definitely be, when it comes to three-wheeler, can be done, but when it comes to two-wheeler, a lot of infrastructural changes are required. So my only concern has been always that if you want to have this major shift into the electric vehicles space that has been awaited for so long, but we need a clear-cut policy so that we can depend and drive a complete ecosystem in place so that the country is able to handle that change. So that has been my important task from the all industry, governments and every aspects. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Lohia ji. Next, my question is for Darryl. How is the expansion of last mile delivery network shaping demand for electric commercial vehicles? Something that you also focused on in your introductory remarks. And what sort of operational hurdles currently exist and how can they be solved? It looks like a loaded question, but just building on what you said in the introductory remarks. So what do you?
Sure, Chetna. So I'll break it up into two parts, right? So the last mile delivery networks in tier 2 and tier 3 cities, they're humongous, they're massive. The opportunity is massive there. So the e-commerce, quick commerce, groceries, food segments, the focal point has shifted from tier 1 to tier 2 and tier 3 cities. In fact, right, it's no longer just another satellite city sort of a thing. That's their focus, that's their growth. Next S curve comes for them from the tier 2 and tier 3 cities. In fact, I was reading a report from Ernst & Young which said that 50% of e-commerce orders, more than 50%, 53% of e-commerce orders are from non-metro cities. That just goes on to tell us that there's humongous opportunity for last mile delivery in tier 2 and tier 3 cities, right? So Jaipur, so just to give you an analogy or a statistics, which is Magenta's, we operate in 21 cities, only 7 cities are tier 1 cities. We operate only the minus 21, minus 7, whatever number is, we operate in tier 2 and tier 3 cities, right? So that also tells you how much potential is in tier 2 and tier 3 cities when it comes to last mile deliveries. What are the biggest hurdles to operate in tier 2 and tier 3 cities? Contrary to everyone's belief, it's not charging infra. Right? So typically EVs, the biggest hurdle is charging infra. We've heard it many times, but in tier 2 and tier 3 cities, that's not a challenge. Why? Because the land parcels are easy to get. They're cheaper than your metros and tier 1 cities, right? It's easier to set up charging infra over there. What's difficult is your vehicle servicing, availability of the skilled laborers to sort of repair the batteries, BMSs, and the technical stuff. That's been so. What the hurdles that we face in tier 2 and tier 3 cities is, the longer turnaround time for our vehicles to get repaired, right? That sort of sidelines our vehicles for a longer period of unnecessarily longer period of duration. So that's the biggest hurdle that we face out of many others.
Thank you. Thank you, Darryl, and thanks for keeping it concise as well and for sharing the stats to back it up. Next, my question is for Neha. As an OEM, how do you approach tier 2 and 3 cities differently than metros? And you did share a lot of stats and how the demand is mostly coming from tier 2, tier 3 cities now for EVs. What are the key considerations for consumers, whether it is financing or after sales services?
So, for sure, like I shared in my opening remarks also, Chetna, that tier 2, tier 3 city customers are, well, the awareness is growing on, but I think from a demand wise, they are very practical. So, the cost of, and plus they are very price sensitive as well, right? So, the cost of the vehicle, what is the suppose range you are getting, what is the cost of ownership, there is a reduced maintenance cost, all these, and plus practical usage also, like when we see in tier 2 tier 3 cities, the kind of customers which are adopting electric vehicles, but there is also buckets of customers who are like professionals, for example doctors, and other professionals who know that what is their daily commute, is it limited, is it not going to be long distance. EVs make perfect sense for that commute. What is my weekly driving usage, etc. Or there are business owners who know that this is my daily commute, this is how I will charge, this is the route I'm going to take, so there's a fixed pattern to my usage, etc. So I think number one, in terms of customer trends, practicalness of the usage, then very clear practical usage points, for example cost of running, cost of operations, maintenance cost, etc. Yes, there are few challenges also, but like Daryl rightly said, service, providing the right kind of service, providing right kind of skilled manpower. So as MG, we are also trying to do and bring a lot of initiatives in this space which can ease the total ownership experience. Some of this, like for example, still I would say in four wheelers, the charging infra is still required, because that builds confidence that whenever you're stuck outside your home, where will you charge? So we have programs like MG Charge, where we are building community charging. These are not very high speed, but I would say more network oriented, chargers where you can go and easily top up in case of a requirement. Initiatives like eHub. eHub is our unified charging platform, where we have collaborated with, I would say, the national and the regional charge point players, to bring the unified network access to the customer, so that the discovery and the usage can be at ease. And this also builds a confidence that the infra is growing and it is coming up, and where can I find all these chargers in my city. Then to build a robust service and support, we are also bringing or building up country outlets, which helps to build the brand presence and also provide service touch points. So you mentioned cities like Panipat. We want to be present in the cities which are these upcountry cities, like Solan, Purnia, Muzaffarpur, Bhiwani, place like Daulatganj. So all these areas is where like we are building our upcountry outlets as well, for the customer's first touch point. This also is supported by, I would say, hyper-local campaigns to build EV awareness, bringing or engaging local, I would say, influencers or local public figures also to build and create overall EV advocacy. So I think these are the few initiatives which I can talk about, which we are doing from our end to build more confidence and help to support the EV adoption.
Thanks, Neha. Thanks for sharing about the initiatives that MG is especially taking on e-hubs and campaigns that you're doing, and looking forward to more such upcountry outlets. My next question is to Ravindra Mohan ji. What are the biggest challenges in scaling EV charging infrastructure in tier 2 and tier 3 cities? And more than that, I think there are a lot of questions around swapping versus charging in the chat that I am seeing. So maybe a good time to answer some of those as well. And are intercity corridors emerging as critical enablers for expansion of charging infrastructure network and adoption of EVs? So over to you, sir. So you are on mute.
Challenges are proper site selection, in the sense that land parcel may be there, but is it right place? What the person do, especially four-wheelers, what person do for 40 minutes? So it has to be sometime in tier 2 cities, you have a lot of options in terms of the restaurants and malls, etc. Tier 2 cities still, since we are competing with home charging, and as it's Gopinath told, 20%, 10, I mean, I'll say 20 is higher, 5 to 10% what he needs. The four-wheeler needs public charging when he wants to go out of the city or some emergency is there. When otherwise he plugs in and daily in the morning his tank is full. Because of that, there is always getting a right site selection is a challenge. I mean, for commercial hubs it may be easy, for three-wheeler or L5 and all, you get a land, because then it becomes more of a hub depot than actually a public charging. Having said that, and second thing is reliability of power, which is not so great. Now you think that you are going to do it and fix a time, and suddenly you go and find out that power is not there. Nothing can be done. There's a raw material which makes everything happen. So integration of solar and grid is a requirement which happens. Now, second question is, that is why we have suggested to MHI in tier 2 cities, probably a hybrid model is going to work well, because it addresses the intercity trucks or buses with 150 kilowatt or higher power. And when you get that, and this is, these buses and trucks and all will come only for maybe we give you 3 to 4 hours a day. The balance of time, 150 or 200 kilowatt hour, and it will be free to you. So you can have some AC slow chargers for emergency if it is required, or only battery swapping. It makes sense. Then you don't apply another power. It is already there. And where if we are able to integrate solar and grid there, so reliability is there. And this battery swapping for e-rickshaws and two-wheelers is probably what has become common in. It is catching up in India fast because of the e-commerce. Two-wheelers in e-commerce, they don't see, otherwise there is no active or passive cooling in the batteries. So you cannot have 10 minutes, 15 minutes, whatever you need to, which is, and a four-wheelers, possibly we are progressing, the BYD is saying 5 minutes, 400 kilometers and all. We are progressing, but in two-wheelers and all, where the size is so small, and the whole thing that you cannot have any cooling. Because of that, you can get only 0.2, 0.1 C, 0.5 charging takes 2 hours, 3 hours, and 4 hours, that sort of thing. So their battery swapping is going to help, because e-commerce, any vehicle which is more on the road is better. So two-wheelers and e-rickshaw, same thing. One e-rickshaw is operated by minimum two or maybe sometimes 3 operators. So they don't have time to put in the night and charge. They would like to change, always use it. So this hybrid model, we have always suggested to MHI, whatever funding is going to happen, why don't we look at it? It supports both the truck as well as this. So this is our suggestion to it. And probably I have answered you, anything is left out.
Yeah. No, thank you so much, sir. Thank you for sharing your responses with respect to charging infrastructure. Really appreciate. I see there are a lot of questions around charging infrastructure and battery swapping in the chat. And as we mentioned in the beginning, that this is an ongoing series, so we could consider doing another webinar on charging infrastructure alone where we can deep dive. Unfortunately, due to the time constraints, we may not be able to delve deeper, but really thank the audience. Now, we just have a few minutes left, but I want to use this opportunity to do a quick rapid fire. So we just need one word answer, one word, not even one phrase, one word answer from each of you. We can stick to the same order, Amegh, Ayush, Darryl, Neha, and Ravindra ji. I'll ask two questions back to back and see how we land up. So my first question is in the same order. My first question is, in your view, which tier 2 or 3 city in India is most likely to become 100% electric first? So, Amegh, starting with you.
It's a difficult question, but then
Rapid
I think
fire.
cities. Yeah, Bhubaneswar. I have high stakes for Bhubaneswar.
Perfect. Ayush ji, which city?
So tier 2, I think when you say completely electric means all two-wheeler, three-wheeler, the complete category.
Yeah.
That's
Open to
very
interpretation, but yeah. Since you're focusing on tier three-wheelers, so three-wheelers, which city will have 100% electric three-wheelers first?
in two-tier. I think you have cities like Lucknow, Kanpur. These cities are already getting very active when it comes to three-wheelers. Delhi, for that matter, I think, but it is metro, not tier 2, 2A, 3. So
Thanks, Darryl.
Surat for me, an underdog, but we've been seeing some uptrend over there.
Thanks, Neha. Neha, you're on mute.
We see a lot of growth coming from southern market, especially Kerala as a state. So I will put my bets on a lot of cities in Kerala as well, like Calicut, for example, which can be the first few cities to become 100% electric.
Thanks, Ravindra ji. Which one city will be electrified first?
I think I will go with the somewhere, it will happen in probably Surat.
Perfect. 2 votes for Surat then. And some amazing responses in the chat box as well. Second question, what is the single biggest enabler that will accelerate EV adoption in smaller city? Policy, financing, infrastructure, or something else? Amegh.
I'll go for financing and charging both.
financing from my side also.
Darryl.
DCO for three-wheeler operations.
Neha.
Financing.
Yeah,
Ravindra
financing.
ji.
Financing
Perfect.
is one of the.
So many votes for financing for sure.
And
And
you will
my
not
last
believe,
questions.
sorry to interrupt, you will not believe we are asking since 2008, we are asking that electric vehicles should become under priority landing, and government has not given any heat on that. So that is some of the challenges regularly.
Sorry, I am just being greedy. So one last question. If you had to describe the future of EVs in India's smaller cities in just one word, what that one word would be? Amegh.
Inclusive transition.
I think source of
Ayush.
income would be the major change which will drive this electric vehicle revolution.
I think it's think local, act local. It's hyper local.
Neha.
I'll go for energy Atmanirbharta.
Ravindra ji.
Yeah, it will be energy as a service.
Perfect. Amazing. Thank you so much. Fantastic panel and fantastic responses from you all. This brings us to the close of the webinar. So thank you so much to all the panelists for joining us. It's been an enriching discussion. I hope the audience enjoyed it as well. And your perspectives on policy, market trends, financing, infrastructure have given us a lot to think about, and also for the future webinars that we'll plan. A big shout out to the Shoonya team for making this session possible. And as we wrap, one thing is clear that EV adoption is no longer just a metro story, as I started with, and the road ahead runs through smaller cities together. And I believe that together we can drive real and scalable impact. So thank you so much for being part of this conversation, and have a good rest of the day to you all.
Thank you. Thank you, Chetna. And thank you,
Thank you.
Bhargavi.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Thank you, Chetna. Take
Take
care.
care.
Bye.
Have a good day.